Thank you for coming and praying with us this evening. We come together once again on this third fortnight for freedom, ending on July 4th, called by the bishops of the United States to pray for religious liberty and freedom of conscience, which are continuing under attack, directly and indirectly, by our government and others with secular power. It is important that we continue to do so, to pray in this way, because the surest way for the evil one to win out is to distract our attention to other things, to lure us into believing that this is an old issue and that we're getting along just fine, or to suggest that it's not really a moral question we're praying about, but rather a political dispute which those who win elections can choose to impose. Yet while there are political motivations by some, the threat to religious liberty is much more than that. It is a complex question for us all as we deal with our daily challenges. It includes moral, legal, constitutional, regulatory, and practical elements. It's hard to keep on top of all of its implications. But make no mistake about it, the appetite of those who seek to remove the core values that have inspired and held us together as a nation, and to relegate faith to worship only in the back room, will not weaken, but rather will intensify. We pray for them and for the salvation of their souls. As a result of this reality, we lay and clergy alike in our own ways must be ever vigilant and must contest all threats to religious liberty and freedom of conscience, not just for ourselves, but in the name of religious freedom for all peoples. Around the world these days, we see the persecution of Christians and other minorities where the authority of government has already relegated our brothers and sisters into enclaves of worship. With the angry mobs, we now see that even those enclaves are attacked, churches burned, religious articles destroyed, and innocent people forced from home and made refugees because religious liberty is absent. Pope Francis has said the persecution of Christians is even more virulent than in the first centuries of the church, and there are more Christian martyrs than in that era. He said it gives him great pain. It should us as well. While we are not facing such direct attack in the United States, what happens here affects the world. Should the light of religious liberty be weakened here, it will surely be so elsewhere. Ultimately, religious liberty comes down to the core belief and the respect for human life, all life gifted by God, from conception to natural death, and those years in between when we live out our faith in personal and public ways. This is not just a Catholic concern alone. It ought to be a concern of all persons, of faith or no faith, because it seeks to assure the freedom of each person to be whom God created them to be, or even to err, for which God's mercy is ever present. Thus, it is important that we make clear that the challenge to government and societal censorship of religious liberty and freedom of conscience is not based on a selfish search for personal exemptions from laws we dislike, or that we only wish the opportunity to live as we please in ways others may not share. Rather, we seek the recognition of the natural law and the natural right of any person to believe and exercise his faith or no faith for himself. The natural law concept is described in the Declaration of Independence, that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is the undergirding of our Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and it is the safety net for our society that natural rights flow from God's gift of life, including religious liberty. The theme for this Fortnight for Freedom this year is freedom to serve. We are not only a church of creed and of prayer, we are a church that seeks to live out our personal relationship with Jesus Christ by caring about our brothers and sisters, especially the poor and those in need, whether they share our creed or not. Pope Benedict XVI, in his encyclical Deus Caritas Est, God is Love, noted the Church's deepest nature is expressed in her threefold responsibility of proclaiming the Word, celebrating the sacraments, and exercising the ministry of charity. These duties, he wrote, presuppose each other and are inseparable. For the Church, he said, charity is not a kind of welfare activity which could equally well be left to others, but is a part of her nature, an indispensable expression of her very being, of our very being. Inherent in what we believe is when we see someone in need, we reach out in whatever way we can. That's the history behind Catholic health care, education, nursing homes, child care facilities, food pantries, meal programs, and other caring ministries. Here in our diocese, we have a long history of such caring ministries, especially started by the religious orders, and in the present day supported by so many lay men and women of faith. Even now, we as a diocese, in cooperation with others, are seeking to address the vacuum in providing safe shelter for women and men and families at the Bishop Dudley Hospitality House, then offer to them a helping hand for a more hopeful tomorrow. Through St. Joseph Catholic Housing, affordable and senior housing has been made available in many communities around our diocese. If some of the proposals to restrict religious freedom and freedom of conscience become the law, however, we may well need to withdraw from providing these essential services in order not to violate our responsibility and duty to stand for moral truth and respect life, whatever the cost. One of the great scourges of our day is human trafficking, especially of little girls. Yet because of government mandate, the Bishop's Migration and Refugee Services, after years of leading the way, no longer offers this ministry because it would not refer for abortions girls saved from this slavery. That's only one sad example. This may all seem so overwhelming. Who can successfully contest governments and others with such secular power? Yet we must contest not to win political jousts, but to win eternity. While there may be a period of darkness ahead that will call for courage, we need not live in darkness, for Christ is the light of the world. The Liturgy of the Hours today, one of the readings was the account of the encounter between David and Goliath. David volunteered to King Saul to confront the threatening presence of the giant Philistine. The king first had him put on the armor of a soldier and carry a sword, but it was too heavy and awkward for the young David. So he approached the ominous giant in regular garb, armed only with a sling and some stones. Goliath mocked him and his seeming weakness, to which David replied that he came armed with the name of the Lord, and so do we. He whom we adore tonight is our hope and our strength. We stand up for moral truth in the name of the Lord, who won victory over sin and death on the cross. and who remains with us. Ultimately, truth and justice will prevail because he has overcome the world. Until that day comes, though, let us continue to pray, to witness, and to be beacons of hope for others. As our reading just reminded us, the Lord watches over the way of the just. May Mary, Mother of Life and of Hope, and St. Joseph, our patron, watch over, protect our country and us all.